Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first breakout session for today. I hope you enjoyed the keynote sessions we had earlier. We had some fabulous speakers on, and we're excited to keep this going as we get into our sessions. My name is Caitlin Baker. I'm the creative manager here at GovLoop. I'm so excited to be here. In today's session, we're going to be talking about building your brand. What's your value proposition? What are your core values as a professional? What do you bring to the table each day? We have our expert Brian here today to help you explore what truly matters to you as an individual in the workforce and how to effectively communicate that to your colleagues and supervisors. Before we get into the content for today, we have a few housekeeping items to go over. If you are on the website formerly known as Twitter, please make sure to follow us at NextGen.gov and use the hashtag to share what you're learning. If you have any questions today, you could submit them through the Q&A tab or in the group chat box. And just as a reminder, everything on your screen is modular. You can move it around however works best for you. You can expand and make things bigger if you need more space for the chat or anything like that. But if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in. In the Q&A tab, they will be anonymous. If you also have any technical difficulties, you can send a message in that Q&A tab as well. My colleague Andrew on the back end can help get anything sorted out for you. In the resources tab, we have a bunch of additional resources. We also have the slide deck for this session if you'd like to download that. And then just as a reminder, we will be emailing out the entire session after NextGen is over. So you can have the on-demand version of this training and all of the other breakout sessions that you won't be able to make if you're here. So you won't be missing anything. You can catch up on all of it as soon as we email you the full link. Now we are offering CPE credit for the session today. So just as a reminder, there's 3 things you need to do. Attend the training for the full duration of it. Take the polls that will pop up throughout the training. I think we have 5 of them today. And just as a reminder, if those do pop up, make sure you scroll down to see all of the options. And then after the session is over, complete the evaluation. That can be found in the resource module and then also in the resource center in the main environment. So with all of that out of the way, I'm very excited to introduce our speaker today, Brian. Brian is an organizational change management lead for the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. And the floor is yours.
Great. Caitlin, thank you so much. Andrew, thank you so much as well. Yes, good morning, everyone. I myself was a part of the, or listened in on the opening keynote remarks a few moments ago at NextGen. Know a couple of those individuals as well. So super excited. Glad that you all have chosen to be a part of this particular workshop on building your personal brand. What's your value proposition? And so as Caitlin mentioned, my current role, organizational change management lead within the Securities and Exchange Commission. I've been in the federal space for a little over 14 years now. And particularly, personal branding, identifying, key strengths, what makes us unique has always been something of interest to me, and was really excited to lead today's workshop on this particular matter. So just to start things off, I believe, brand is synonymous with reputation. And I'm sure you all have heard the phrase before, your reputation precedes you. And so having a positive brand, having a brand that aligns with expectations of yourself, that certainly goes a long way, obviously not just in personal matters, but in professional situations, right? Having individuals speak on behalf and speak and articulate things, that you believe are true about yourself, speaking up and sharing those with other individuals, even when you're not around, really leads and gives sense to, having a strong brand, being able to, communicate to others, what unique, skills and experience you bring to any organization or any, group of individuals that you're interacting with. And so, something to keep in mind today is I'm not going to dive too much into this particular topic, but I'm sure you all are, aware that, there can be negative connotations with certain brands. And so, when we, as we walk through this, discussion and presentation, also just keep in mind the, your core values and beliefs and the things about yourself, or, the things about yourself that you want to steer clear from, in terms of, building your brand, building your reputation, and having, your colleagues be able to see that about you as well. So today, touch on what is personal brand, what aspects, make up your personal brand, how to communicate that, ways to discover and peel back the layer in terms of, identifying your unique value proposition, regardless of our life experiences, commonalities in life experiences, commonalities in, where we work, where we come from. No two individuals are alike at all. There's always some nugget, some nuance that really makes us unique, and that really is our superpower. And we'll discuss a little bit about that as well. And then, when we wrap up, we'll have some Q&A, but also going to provide you with some, specific actions that you can take after this workshop, to support you, whether you're at the beginning, the middle, or wrapping up, determining what your personal brand is, what unique value proposition is. I'll share with you some of the things that I've done in the past, and, some of the, activities that may be helpful for you as well. Okay, so first poll question here. Caitlin, I'll start things off this way.
All right. So first, we would like to know, how comfortable are you in communicating your value proposition to others? Very confident, somewhat neutral, not really sure, unconfident, or somewhat unconfident, or very unconfident. And so Brian, how would you define specifically value proposition? I feel like that's important when answering this.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of aspects to value proposition, and I won't give too much away with the other slide, but it really is your self-awareness in terms of your abilities, your strengths, and what you bring to either others at a individual level, bring to an organization. And your value proposition can also be what others have, expressed, their observations about you. Now, the way that we can articulate that to others, whether we're comfortable doing so, whether if someone says good things about us, do we actually believe them? Do we think it's a fluke? A little bit of that self-imposter syndrome pops up. So, that's what we think of in terms of value proposition. You may know it, but then your ability to persuade and influence others, in the same manner.
Absolutely. I feel like the imposter syndrome is a really important thing here, because that I know a lot of us struggle with that.
Yes, me as well.
All right, we'll give a few more seconds on this. I do think it's interesting. I feel like it's having what other people say about you and how other people describe you is like such an interesting part of like understanding who you are.
Yeah. And I don't have a slide on it, and but there's the concept of self, and I think there's three aspects to it, right? There's who we believe we are, there's who how we view ourselves, how others view us, and then how we actually are, right? And so I think that's always interesting to understand that and get that feedback.
Definitely. Okay, let's see what our results are. So it's looking pretty spread out, but most people are in the somewhat confident to very confident range. That's great.
Good. All right, I like it. I like it. And then yeah, for those that may have responded in a way less than ideal for yourselves, I think this workshop and the conversations with your peers, we'll at some point bump up that comfortability rating. So that's all good. Thanks, Caitlin. Whoops. All right, so I'm going to start things off with this particular slide. So and we'll spend a few moments on this. Now, some of you may recognize all of these individuals, some of these individuals, or none of these individuals, and that's perfectly fine. So, what I'm going to do is, and I know I will use my mouse cursor, but then I will also describe the location of the individual in the slides. And we'll just go one by one, and you can do this in the chat. What I'm going to do is when I move my mouse cursor over the individual, and I'll describe the picture so that you know who I'm referencing. Anyone in the chat, if you know that particular individual, just enter their name in the chat message, and then um, what I will do is just spend a little bit of time, just describing that individual and just relaying at least what I believe their personal brand is, and what I believe they are intentionally putting out into the world. Okay. So on the, oh, all right, I'm just looking at the chat here. Individuals aren't seeing the slides. Let me, can anyone see the slides? Okay, someone mentioned Michelle Obama, so I know some folks are seeing it. Okay, great, great, great. So what I'm going to first start off with is the bottom left corner here. It's an older African-American gentleman with glasses on. Does anyone know who that individual is at the bottom left? Okay, no responses on the bottom left as of yet. I think I've got one here. So this is Junior Bridgman. Now, depending, at what stage you may have heard this name, his brand can go multiple ways, right? So Junior Bridgman, he's a former NBA player. He spent most of his career with the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, anyone that makes it to the NBA is certainly, above average. But from, when you compare him to his other NBA peers, and just, the NBA history, from a skill set and accomplishment standpoint, he may not rank as high as those other individuals. But what is very unique about Junior Bridgman is he really can probably call himself not only the richest NBA player, but the most successful NBA player turned entrepreneur. Junior Bridgman, he had enough foresight, early on in his career, understanding that given where he fit in the landscape of the NBA, he probably wasn't going to make, tens of millions of dollars. And by the way, when he played, contracts were nowhere near what they are today. And so he pivoted into franchising, particularly the food industry. And Junior Bridgman, at one point, he owned over 160 Wendy's and over 120 Chili's restaurants. And so nowadays, when individuals look at Junior Bridgman, they look at him as a very successful, very visionary entrepreneur versus being a former NBA player and a former Sixth Man of the Year. Okay. Moving on here, the top left individual. This is a gentleman wearing a colorful Hawaiian shirt. And if you look closely at the slides, you should be able to make out what those products are on the factory line. But I'll give individuals maybe about 10 seconds to see if you know who this particular gentleman is here at the very top left. Okay, that individual is Mark Terra. Yes, I see someone in the chat, Hawaii Rose. Yes, exactly. So Mark Terra, his father started the Hawaiian the Hawaiian roll brand back in Hawaii, and then Mark Terra, his son, has now assumed assumed CEO and leadership of the Hawaiian brand. His son, this gentleman here, Mark Terra, is can really be attributed to bringing the Hawaii roll brand, stateside, right? We have the Hawaiian, that's where it started off at, but really bringing it stateside. And so it's hard to go to a barbecue or cookout without seeing these, yes, very delicious Hawaiian rolls and Hawaiian breads. Okay. Next individual here, a smaller circle directly underneath him. I think no surprise there. Steve Jobs, the late great Steve Jobs. His personal brand could be he kept it simple in terms of wardrobe, right? He wore his black turtleneck, black shirt. He wore his jeans. That was less decisions for him to make. There's a lot of entrepreneurs who are the similar mindset. Kind of that simple wardrobe so they can really focus their energy on things that really move the needle. But yes, Steve Jobs, iPhone, Apple, right? I am an Android user, right? I am the individual that messes up the group chats. I do have Apple products for work and just for my, some of my other, my other leisure activities. But yes, Steve Jobs, certainly an innovator. Now, what's interesting about Steve Jobs, and this is for all of us, right? And all these individuals on the line, on the slide here, Steve Jobs, very famously, whether you know or not, towards the end of his time, on Earth, he did make some remarks about, wishing he had spent more time with his families and, with his family and his children. And so, as great as Steve Jobs, is and was with what he's contributed, from a technological standpoint, and we know that as his big brand, depending who else you may ask in his circle, his brand perception may be a little bit different, right? And I think that can go for all of us as well. It's just a matter of ensuring to the highest degree possible, we can keep that good intention that aligns with our core and values. Okay, the individual here, and I see some responses in the chat already from earlier. And so, yes, this is the lovely Mrs. Michelle Obama, not just the former president's wife. She is an author. She is one of her, part of her big brand is she's a really big advocate for fitness and health, especially for our children, young folks, and young adults, right? And so I've come to view her in that manner of what she really pushes out there from a health and wellness standpoint, not just being, the former president's wife. Okay, the top right, I'm really impressed with the chat responses, by the way. So you are clearly well-versed. So the top right, this individual is Indra Nooyi. Yes, she is the former CEO of the Pepsi company. She is, of Indian descent. She came over here, later in her adult, in her younger years. And so I put her on this slide. She's a big proponent for obviously cultural sensitivity, inclusion, her being a brown-skinned woman, not native to the United States. She's also, at Pepsi Company, she had stood up or put out a message with regards to performance with purpose, just bringing light to women in executive roles, executive positions, not just at Pepsi, but at other, big Fortune 500 companies. And so, when you think of Indra Nooyi, those are some of the elements that you think of from her brand, what she puts out there, what she wants the world to attach themselves to. Okay, and then the last individual here, I'm not sure if I saw responses for this one. Does anyone know who the bottom right individual is, right underneath Indra? Okay, yes. Jessica Alba, yes, you are correct. So once again, maybe similar to Junior Bridgman, and it's all preference or taste. So Jessica Alba, she really got her start in, quote unquote pop culture, taking the acting route. She was an actress in a number of movies, Fantastic Four, Sin City. But nowadays we may know her more so as the founder, co-founder of the Honest Company, the Honest brand, right? I have a 3-year-old daughter. I drink all her Honest brand juices all the time. Um, that company was born out of just some of the challenges she had as a child, just with certain child sicknesses. But what she really wanted to put out there is ethical consumerism, right? Being more mindful of, the products and ingredients that we are really giving our children, especially because it's so impactful at such an early stage, right? And so, yes, she got her start as an actress. Some may know her, from that, but I believe that her biggest impact to date, is through her company and what she's been able to do, shedding light to some of those areas, that she's passionate about. So why did I have this slide? Why did I have you all go through this, go through this exercise? As you can see here, your personal brand, that shapes how others perceive you in the workplace and beyond. And there's a balance, right? You know, I also understand that caring too much about what others think about us is also not the best thing, right? Um, and especially depending who the individual is, right? So yes, we want to have some balance in terms of, looking for too much extrinsic validation versus our own intrinsic validation. Yet the world that we live in, the organizations that we work in, we can't escape the fact that what we put out, the vibes that we put out, the things that we care about, the things that mean something to us, those are picked up and perceived by others around us. And that can be used to our benefit, which we'll talk about in the next few slides. So thank you all for participating. Okay, so on the previous slide, we talked a little bit about, what is a personal brand. And so I want to spend some time helping you all figure out, okay, well, what am I passionate about, right? What is my calling? What are my core beliefs? What are some of the strengths that others see in me that I may not necessarily see in myself, that I should latch onto and leverage and use that for good, wherever I'm at in my organization and in my workplace. So the first way to, get an idea of where your strength lies, what comes natural to you, is just starting off with the self-assessment. That can be through journaling, reflective journaling. That could be through taking a look at previous experiences that you've been a part of, conversations that you've been a part of, and really peeling back the layer and, asking yourself, well, what about this experience? What about this environment did I, really enjoy? Where do I believe I excelled in? And then just start jotting those things down, start writing those things down. I know for myself, I've got this, throughout, my entire life is, hey, Brian, you smile a lot. And for me, I didn't think nothing of it because, it was kind of just just a natural inclination. Some people kind of have that stern resting face. Mine leans towards, just relaxed, smiling, engaging in a good conversation. And so I realized that, especially in my role as organization change management lead, and then previous roles about, previous project management roles, that enthusiasm, my natural inclination for enthusiastic conversations, engaging conversations, individuals appreciated that, especially in times of change, whatever disruption may be happening within an organization. Me being able to bring those vibes and bring that energy, to a room was appreciated. And for a while, I thought, okay, maybe I should not smile a lot. Maybe I should kind of chill, keep a stern face, poker face, don't show how I'm feeling. And that was unnatural to me. So, I challenge you all, what comes natural to you? What feels good? What lights you up versus what might particularly drain you? Those are great places to start. When we discuss unique value proposition, once again, this is, you know, reflecting on past experiences, whether they're trials and tribulations or their experiences of accomplishment. Uh, I believe that, we may do a disservice to ourselves if we don't reflect on what's happened to us, because I like to believe that everyone on this workshop, we are all 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years ahead of someone else out in the world that could rely on our experiences and our expertise so that either they can continue to do the same good things that we did, or we can course correct them, right? So, I may come across a junior project manager or someone who's been in the government space for 3 years. I've been in for 14 years. That difference alone is a unique value. Just that time difference, me being in 14 years versus them being in 3 years, right? There's potentially an 11-year gap where I can empower someone else. You all, in your role, you may be on the legal side, contracting, acquisition, dealing, directly with your constituents out in your city and municipality, and you may have done this role X number of years, but your organization, this is whatever their mission and function is, still may be kind of new. And so here you are bringing in that X number of years and X experience to your organization. That in itself is a unique value, right? We don't have to overthink too much that we need to be the best at something, the first at something, the greatest at something. That is not all encompassing of unique value. Unique value really is this person, this organization, have they done this before? If no, and I've done it before, that right there is unique. That right there, can, bring wonders to that individual, to that organization. And then the last item on this slide here, vision and goals. What are your core beliefs? What are your principles? That all is going to be a part of your personal brand. And, just reflecting back on some of the individuals, that I had on the previous slide, their greatness, their contribution to society, that was all rooted in what they believe was right and what they believe that all individuals should have access to and should be able to experience. And so, us being public servants, whether it's at the federal, state, local level, and I can imagine, just the breadth of the type of work that you all do. Take some time to ensure and confirm that your beliefs, just as a person, as an individual, how does that align with your organization? How does that align with the work that you're doing on a day-to-day basis, right? And I am in no way advocating for anyone to put in resignation notices, right? Yet we want to be sure that we are operating within our genius. We want to ensure that, we spend a lot of time at work. We spend a lot of time with our coworkers and peers. And so whatever lights you up, right? Whatever you really believe, whatever that goodness in your heart is, ensuring that you can find ways to not only bring that to your organization, but to be able to pass that along to the rest of the public that, consumes our services and products, being in this public sector environment. Okay, so, how do we communicate all this, right? Okay, so you have a good sense of, your core principles and beliefs. you know, you have an idea of what your North Star is in terms of, this is the sort of contributions I want to make not only to the organization and the community, but, just to other individuals in general. How do I ensure that the perception that I have for myself, others are able to see, acknowledge, and even spread, that proper perception that I have for myself? So the first one I would say is storytelling. Um, Humans, individuals, we love a good story. It resonates with them. It's memorable. I think that a good story puts the receiver of that communication in the passenger seat, where you essentially take them along the ride of, where you've been in life, what your experiences have been, whether it's work wise or professional wise. Uh, we often do business with people that we know, like, and trust. And so that ability to share that narrative with others is, helpful in persuading and influencing. And, that is essentially what we do on a daily basis, whether you know it or not, whether it's consciously or, whether it's conscious or subconscious. We are persuading and influencing, on a constant basis, right? And so the ability to tell your story, the ability to tell your narrative ensures that people understand, they consume, and there's some relevancy to what your personal brand is, what you want others to know about you. And we heard a little bit about that, with regards to that during, one of the opening keynotes this morning. And then just last on the storytelling piece, once again, earlier I mentioned that a good personal brand, a good strong reputation, that manifests itself in others speaking up for you or about you in a positive light, even when you're not around. And so when you're able to wrap your experience and your expertise in a story, it makes it memorable. And then it allows people to run with that story and talk about all the great things that they learned and heard about you. The other key component when communicating your personal brand, and this is so important now in the days of social media, is consistent messaging. Now, social media, we're not going to get into how much you should put out there or how little you should put out there. But if you are intentionally, building your brand, wanting to show yourself as a particular thought leader or an expert, in whatever, whatever field you're in, this is where consistent messaging is important. And this could be something as basic as the way we respond to emails, right? So when you pick up the phone and you speak with Brian Wilson, the energy that I receive from speaking with Brian on the phone, is that the same energy that I receive when I speak with him in person? And is that the same energy when we send emails back and forth, when we can't see expressions and we can't see body language, right? So whatever perception, whatever expertise you want others to know about you, be mindful of ensuring that individuals have a consistent experience with you. Do I show up the same way with these individuals, regardless of the communication mode? And the consistent messaging, that also builds recognition. So let's say that, let's say that, you have been a project manager for X number of years, You know, that may look like blogging for your agency, right? At my agency, we have a blog as a part of our community of practice. One of my goals is to be seen not only as a thought leader, but as someone that shares his experiences so that others that are quote unquote new, have something to leverage. So that's part of my consistent messaging, right? Blogging, even writing for GovLoop. It might be, having social, media posts on LinkedIn. Your consistent messaging might just be within your organization being a mentor or signing up for lunch and learn sessions. Or I'll give you a prime example here. Let's say that you are in charge of training for your organization, right? And so you are responsible for persuading and influencing individuals within your organization to participate in training sessions. Well, how would that look if no one ever sees you participating in those training sessions, yet you are the one that is looking to persuade and influence others to do so, right? So once again, how are you showing up and being reflective in terms of this is what I know about myself, this is what I want others to view me as, but am I actually doing that particular work? And that's an honest conversation. And then the other element here is the elevator pitch, right? We've all heard of the elevator pitch, and I just want to say the elevator pitch should not be a rush. You know, it's not fitting your whole life story. It's not fitting your 10, 15 years of experience within 30 seconds. I want you to view the elevator pitch as your own clarity about what you bring to the table, how you can support and help either an individual or an organization. So regardless of, how much time an elevator pitch should be, whether it's 30 seconds, 10 seconds, 60 seconds, whatever that may be, an elevator pitch is not about being able to fit in every task that you've done. I want you to view an elevator pitch as bringing clarity to your own self that, okay, this is what I know about myself. This is what I've experienced. What is the best way for me to communicate this, right? Once you gain that clarity and focus with yourself, then when you have those conversations with others, they're going to pick up on that as well. And I also challenge you all to think of an elevator pitch, not just from your own personal standpoint, but an elevator pitch could be on behalf of your organization, right? So you might be in an organization that is either looking to hire, you're looking to partner and collaborate with other organizations. I know in the federal space, having federal-wide communities of practice are a big thing, right? And so we might have individuals from one agency, all come together. It might be 10 different agencies represented in that community of practice. Being able to articulate, have that clarity and focus about what you as an individual or what your organization as a whole, what you bring to the table, where that uniqueness lies, that is an important thing. That adds clarity and focus so that when you interact with individuals, there's no confusion. They don't scratch their head thinking, hey, I met this guy, Brian Wilson, but I'm not exactly sure what he does. I need help in this area, but I'm not sure if Brian can do it, but I know this other individual can, so I'm going to reach out to them. And maybe that's potentially a lost opportunity or lost collaboration, right? So to wrap this up, storytelling, consistent messaging, bringing clarity and focus to, what you want to put out in the world are really great things to help in communicating that to your peers and to others. Okay, and then value proposition. once again, we talked about this, here in a few slides. How do your skills support the organization, right? What is your experience like? Once again, it might just be, hey, I've done this for 11 years. The organization or this individual, they're 3 years into it. There's an 8-year gap. That right there is a unique. That right there can be a unique value that you bring to that organization and that you can bring to others. Number two is quantifiable, right? So when you speak with others with regards to, you know, your unique value, how can you quantify that either from a tangible standpoint or an intangible standpoint? And some are easier than others, right? In terms of if it's a numbers game, either we're in the public sector, so it could be we're not really in the business of saving money, so to speak, but it could be how do your constituents feel when they interact with you as an organization or you as an individual? How does your supervisor feel? Or if you are in a supervisor role and you're looking to move up in your organization, how do people feel after they walk away from experiencing you, whether this is a conversation, whether this is through a meeting, right? And that's where having some of that feedback, with your peers and others makes sense. Of course, be mindful who you receive feedback from, right? Because not all feedback is good, but we still need some insight in terms of how others perceive us and to what extent that jives with our own perceptions about ourselves. And then what's differentiating? What's our superpower, right? Once again, I'm kind of a jovial guy, enthusiastic. I love facilitating. I love speaking, which is a gift and a curse because oftentimes I tend to, over speak when others are talking because I'm so excited for the conversation. But that may fit well, and that may fit well in certain situations, right? That may fit well, if we've got a big group setting, and we are either brainstorming or we're looking to pull information out of individuals for whatever our particular initiative is. That particular skill set may be needed at that time. Others have a great sense for empathy. Others have a great sense of structure, right? I can tend to be scatterbrained. I'm that individual where I write a to-do list and I ignore my to-do list because I'm going to rely on my own memory, which never works, right? So, and I mentioned this earlier, when we think about our superpowers, when we think about what differentiates us from others, it doesn't have to always be this groundbreaking skill set. Oftentimes, what comes natural to us, what we don't even realize that we're doing, that's when it's a superpower. And especially when others see it in us, when others may volunteer us for something or volunteer us to do something, more often than not, they're seeing something about us that they may not be seeing in others. And they might say, hey, I need you to be a part of this opportunity. I need to leverage your perspective, whether we see that in ourselves or not, because it comes so natural. We're so naturally inclined for that. All right. Poll questions.
All right, we got another poll. So which aspect of your value proposition do you find most challenging to develop? Is it identifying unique skills, quantifying your personal achievements, aligning with your organization's needs, or communicating clearly? This is a great question. I have so many notes from what you've been talking about. And I think, I really like the superpower thing. I think it's something like realizing what that is. I know for me, for example, like I took a strengths finders test like years ago, and my number one strength was, which can be a useful thing. It's sometimes even just seeing it. Like my number one strength was adaptability. And I think it's something I knew about myself, but didn't necessarily like think about. And now it is like when I'm like, oh, things are changing or things are happening. It's almost like I'm trying to convince myself, but it's also reminding myself like, this is a strength of mine. I can do this. Like, it's going to be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I've been in social situations or social gatherings where they might need like an MC or something, or they need someone to like speak into a group of people or a crowd. And there's been several times where like, hey Brian, can you take this on? And I'm like, why do I have to do this? I don't feel like doing it. I'm just trying to chill and relax. And you know, for a while I was like, it's kind of it's kind of bothersome. But then I had to realize that, you know what? Okay, someone is seeing something in me that I don't see about myself. Let let's make that a positive. And then I also view that as an opportunity to serve and fulfill others, you know, however, complicated or uncomplicated that is in that particular example. So once again, I challenge you all, and this is when I brought this up, with, whatever your unique value is, your superpower, what differentiates you, don't overthink it. More often than not, we know what it is. We just may not believe that we are actually that good at it because it comes so natural. And once again, that gets into the imposter syndrome. It's like, wait a minute, you want me to speak? In my mind, I thought I sound terrible. My voice is too high. I speak way too fast or I speak way too slow. Yet you keep asking me to speak. What are you doing? Right? That's where you should pause and maybe give yourself some grace and some credit.
Absolutely. Okay, let's see what our poll results are. So it looks pretty split among three of
Pretty
these.
even. Yeah. 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 And then, the low responses on the aligning with your organization's needs, and and no surprise there. So we have our strategic plan, that lays out, and I'm sure every organization has a strategic plan or something of that nature. Take a look at that and kind of reverse engineer. Okay, our organization wants to do XYZ. What kind of person would it take to be able to do that, right? Who do I have to be? Or maybe I'm already that person. So, yeah, take some time, whatever documentation your organization has in terms of like, a vision or roadmap or strategic plan. Take a look at that and see, where am I the type of person that could facilitate that. So, great, 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 great. Okay, so we've covered a good amount today. Great dialogue in the chat, and thank you for responding to the poll questions. All right, so you're gonna walk away from this workshop and ask yourself, okay, what can I do today to start implementing some of these concepts and some of these discussion items. The first one I'll say is behavior and performance, and I'm speaking to myself even when I say this as well. So I have visions of who I want to continue to become in the future, the sorts of, things I want to do, the sorts of behaviors. And while having a vision for the future is a good thing, we should be implementing our future now, meaning I shouldn't wait 6 months to be, the type of individual that goes jogging a mile a day. Why can't I do that today? Why can't I create my future in the present? Right? Because things are going to take time. And so when I say behavior and performance, this should be something where you start doing these activities today. Not necessarily, hey, I have a goal that by December, I'm going to do XYZ. Well, why can't you do XYZ in May and June? Why does it have to wait until December? Right? So just start doing those little habits, little changes in behavior. The time is going to pass anyway, right? And so why not just start doing some of those, just some of those little things that move the needle forward. Professional development. consistently learning. You're attending this NextGen summit. You've probably attended some in the past, and I'm sure you're going to attend some others in the future. And so constantly feeding your brain, feeding your subconscious, these sorts of, dialogues is important. And I'll say this, more often than not, I know what I need to do, in any given moment. Sometimes we just need that reminder. We need to hear it from someone new. We need to hear it from someone other than ourselves. And that's where being a part of, trainings and learning and developments, hearing the same message over and over is not a bad thing. Of course, you want to put those things into practice, but putting yourself in an environment to build that mental and muscle memory to where these things become subconscious and top of mind, that's really, how you can drive things forward. And then the networking aspect, right? The networking, that's where you can learn from others. You can leverage others' experiences. You might come across an individual that's got a great LinkedIn profile. They've got a great, personal brand, but they've been doing it for 5 years, right? And you are at chapter one of your journey. Okay, align yourself with that individual, right? Because there's your chapter one journey, and and that individual's been 5 years in. There's a gap that can be closed. And that's where collaborating and speaking with individuals and organizations, can close that gap and support you in building the perception that you have about yourself, but ensuring that others can see it as well. Because when others see it, that's when opportunities and engagements can start percolating, right? Because now I know exactly what Brian Wilson does. So when I hear XYZ, I know exactly who to go to. Or when there's an opportunity with an organization, I know exactly who to go to. Okay.
All right, another pull for us here. What do you think is your strongest professional attribute? Technical skills, communication skills, leadership qualities, or creativity? And then we did have a question, I think,
Yeah.
in the Q&A box. So what if your appearance and product, which I'm assuming meaning brand, don't align for your age, for example, or something like that?
Can you ask that question one more time?
What if your appearance and your brand don't necessarily align? What do you have any tips?
Yeah. So I will say this. My question back to that individual would be, why don't you think they align? Is that something that is that kind of self-talk that you have about yourself, or have others said that about you? So that's just one thing to be aware of. But yeah, if you believe that, okay, so I'll give you an example here. So as an organizational change manager, I'm responsible for a lot of stakeholder engagement, setting up training sessions, doing a lot of facilitating. And so that is my responsibility. That's my role. But others may come to me and say, "Hey, Brian, you don't smile, you talk over people. When you're on video, your eyes are moving, and you're doing all these other things." And so we know what your role is, and we know what you're supposed to do, but your behavior is unequally yoked, right? So that's where I've got to then learn. One is bringing awareness to that, have enough people said that about me, and then it's either, okay, is this role my zone of genius? Do I feel naturally inclined in this role? If yes, and I do want to smile more, I do want to let people speak, I do want to learn how to be a better facilitator, that's when you then need to develop a training plan and a growth plan for yourself. We all have natural inclinations, and so I'm not going to ignore that. But for the most part, we can get incrementally better at a lot of things while still keeping our personal integrity of what makes us who we are.
Cool. Okay, let's see what the answers to this are. once again, pretty even.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. This is good. Yeah, that's good to see. Yeah, I would say, yeah, my strongest professional attribute, creativity for sure, because outside of this, I do photography and music, so I think that's just like a natural inclination. And then communication, I love speaking with people. Now, my writing could certainly be better, but hey, there's various ways to communicate. So, but yeah, this I'm glad to see these results. All right, and so just to wrap up here, and I think there's maybe two more poll questions, but if we need to skip one of those, we can, because I know we're close for time. So yeah, what can you do now? Clarify your self-image. This is where you want to do some reflection. You want to speak with trusted counterparts, trusted peers. That'll give you the real deal. Give you advice that will help you, not just for the purpose of expressing feelings and emotions, whether they're true or not. Right? That's understanding how others see you. Uh, Leverage your uniqueness. Once again, your unique value, your superpower, your differentiator. Uh, these may be common sense to you, but completely uncommon to others, right? And that's okay. And it might be hard to believe that, but believe it, embrace it, and determine how you can serve others in that uniqueness. And being able to communicate that's what you're able to do in your personal brand, in your elevator pitch, how you show up. Those are ways that you can do that. And advocate for yourself. I believe that if it's true, it's not bragging. Now, the way you say things, of course, can, you know, steer one way or the others. I also know that we shouldn't manage others' emotions. So if you've done something, if you have accomplished something within your organization, you need to speak about it, right? Because there's probably someone 5 years behind you that is getting ready to go through the same experience. And there's a lost opportunity to share that with them because you're fearful or you're worried about sharing the truth about yourself. So I would certainly say to advocate for yourself in closing. All right, and another poll question here.
Okay. Rate your readiness to advocate for yourself in professional situations. So we have a range here from not very ready at all to very ready to advocate. So go ahead and give us your answers there. And I saw we have another question that I think is a good one. How do you change your personal brand when you already have one established? Is this more of a gradual thing, something you can just wake up and decide to do one day? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so change shouldn't be rushed, and ask yourself, why are you quote unquote changing? It really should be, where are you at in this particular season of your life, right? So to some individuals, some of my friends and family know me as a photographer, and when they hear about what I do for work, they are completely mind blown. So changing your personal brand is just communicating maybe some different aspects about yourself, because those skill sets and experiences have always been there. It's just a matter of what you choose to put at the forefront over others. And so, you know, just do some reflection, figure out, what about yourself in this new stage in life you want others to know about you, and have, and be able to resonate with you with regard to that.
Cool. All right, let's see some results here. People are looking pretty ready.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Good, good, good. I like it. I like it. All right. And Caitlin, I had one more poll question, but I know we're at 12:14, and I think you need to wrap up. So what would you like to do? This is
Um,
really good, by the way.
if you're okay with skipping over it,
Yep.
we'll do that.
Yes.
I think with that, any final words or anything else for us, Brian?
Yeah, just advocate for yourself. Uh, you know, don't overthink. Don't undersell yourself, right? Once again, we talked a lot about, hey, this comes natural to me, so I'm not sure, I can really do this. Don't sell yourself short. Trust yourself. trust and believe that you are actually as good as others say you are, right? We tend to be our worst critics. So, others might give you a 9, you give yourself a 5. And because you gave yourself a 5, you think the 5 is true and not the 9. So just keep that in mind.
And then I saw there's a few more questions we got in the box. Brian, is there a good way to reach out to you if anyone has any questions they'd like to follow up?
Yes, absolutely. You can reach out to me on my LinkedIn. I just put it in the chat, and I think it's in my speaker bio. But yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn. I love speaking with individuals. I've had a great career. I've had great mentors and great peers. And so, yeah, I certainly want to impart that on others as well. So thanks a lot, GovLoop. Thanks a lot, audience. I appreciate it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Brian, for being here today. Just to wrap us up real quick, I also want to do a quick thank you to our alliance partners. These are all of the companies that partner with us for NextGen. Without them, this wouldn't be possible. Just as a reminder, if you want your CPE credit, make sure to fill out the evaluation at the end of this. We also have all of the resources from this and more resources in the main environment. We have the leaderboard. You can see your ranking there. It does take a little bit, so make sure don't panic if you're not at the top. You will probably get there. Also at the exhibit hall, we have all of our booths with all of our sponsors. And as usual, if you have any questions, feel free to email us at nextgen@govloop.com. After this, we do have some lunch keynote sessions for the next hour or so. They start in about 15 minutes. Should I stay or should I go? 3 signs you've plateaued in your role, and then advocating for yourself during change. You can access these in the conference hall, as you will with the rest of the sessions. And with that, thank you for being here today. Thank you, Brian, for all of your insights and everything. This has been such a great session. I really appreciate it. Bye, everyone.